You think church suppers in the 1960s were just fried chicken and potato salad? Think again. These gatherings fed entire congregations with dishes carrying generations of wisdom, resourcefulness, and faith. Here are 30 cheap dishes that sustained Black church communities. Candied yams with marshmallows crowned every church supper table, baked in aluminum pans that mothers carried from home kitchens to fellowship halls. Sweet potatoes were peeled and sliced thick, layered with brown sugar, butter, cinnamon, and nutmeg before being blanketed with miniature marshmallows that turned golden under heat. The result tasted like comfort itself, with tender yams swimming in caramelized syrup and marshmallows creating a toasted crust children fought over. These appeared at Easter dinners and revival suppers, essential beside ham and greens. Sweet potatoes cost pennies per pound and lasted weeks in pantries, making them economical for feeding crowds. Church mothers competed quietly over whose yams achieved perfect balance, with recipes passed through families and guarded like secrets. The dish represented abundance even during lean times, proving humble ingredients transformed with love could create joy. Gullah red rice with sausage carried Carolina Low Country traditions into fellowship halls, a dish with roots in West African jollof rice seasoned through generations. Long grain rice was sautéed in bacon drippings with onions, bell peppers, and garlic before crushed tomatoes transformed the mixture into something rich and red, with smoked sausage adding protein. The rice absorbed every bit of flavor as it simmered, turning tender with each grain coated in tomato-rich seasoning. Churchwomen from coastal regions brought this proudly, knowing it represented cultural heritage connecting congregations to ancestors who never forgot their origins. Rice was inexpensive and fed dozens when stretched with vegetables and meat, making it practical for church budgets. The tomatoes added vitamins while sausage provided richness to satisfy working people arriving hungry. Gullah red rice appeared at Wednesday suppers and Sunday dinners, signaling someone understood honoring traditions while feeding community. Neckbones and rice transformed what butchers considered scraps into rich, satisfying meals with minimal expense and maximum flavor. Pork neckbones were browned in large pots until caramelized, then simmered for hours with onions, garlic, and bay leaves until meat fell from bone. White rice served as bed for tender meat and thick gravy, providing complete nutrition. Church mothers understood neckbones required patience and proper seasoning, transforming tough cuts through slow cooking. These bones cost almost nothing at Black-owned butcher shops, making them perfect for feeding crowds on limited budgets. The dish appeared at weeknight suppers and revival meetings, where its hearty nature sustained people through hours of worship. Children learned that good food did not require expensive ingredients, just knowledge, time, and care. Neckbones and rice represented resourcefulness, allowing Black communities to thrive despite economic challenges, proving dignity and deliciousness could emerge from what others discarded. Buttermilk cornbread from scratch emerged from church ovens in cast-iron skillets seasoned through decades, creating golden rounds with crispy bottoms and tender crumbs that soaked up Potlikker perfectly. Stone-ground cornmeal was mixed with buttermilk, eggs, flour, baking powder, and salt before being poured into smoking hot skillets greased with bacon drippings that created the signature crust. The result tasted nothing like store-bought varieties, with slight tang from buttermilk and richness from drippings. Churchwomen competed quietly over whose cornbread achieved perfect texture, not too dry and not too cake-like, but substantial enough to fill stomachs and complement every dish. Cornmeal was among the cheapest staples available, with 5-pound bags costing less than $1. The bread appeared at every gathering, from Wednesday fellowship to all-day singing, where stacks disappeared as quickly as they were baked. Children reached for corner pieces with extra crust, while adults appreciated how the bread stretched meals. Black-eyed peas with ham hocks simmered in church kitchens year-round but held special significance on New Year's Day, when congregations gathered to eat them for luck and prosperity. Dried peas were soaked overnight, then cooked slowly with a single ham hock that released smoky, salty flavor, while onions and garlic added depth. The result was creamy beans in thick pot liquor served as soup or over rice, with ham hock's meat pulled from bone. Churchwomen understood a little meat went far when combined with beans, providing protein without the expense of steaks beyond most budgets. Black-eyed peas cost almost nothing, with dried bags available for pennies, perfect for feeding large crowds after Sunday service. The dish carried deep cultural significance, connecting congregations to Southern agricultural traditions and New Year's customs promising good fortune. Children ate them without complaint because Potlikker's richness made beans taste special, while adults appreciated both nutrition and continuity with tradition. Peach cobbler with hand-rolled crust arrived at church suppers in rectangular pans, golden pastry bubbling with fruit juices that caramelized at edges while centers stayed tender. Fresh peaches were sliced during summer when abundant and cheap, tossed with sugar, cinnamon, nutmeg, and lemon juice before being covered with pastry dough rolled thin. The cobbler baked slowly until crust turned golden and peach filling thickened into syrup pooling in corners, creating bites ranging from crispy edges to fruit-soaked centers. Churchwomen made these in home kitchens early Sunday morning, timing baking so dessert was slightly warm when served. Peaches in season cost little at roadside stands, with bruised fruit perfect since it would be cooked down anyway. The dish represented summer abundance and preserving seasonal fruit, with families often canning peaches for year-round cobblers. Children lined up eagerly, hoping for corner pieces with extra crust, while adults savored the combination that tasted like celebration. Sweet potato pie with nutmeg was the signature dessert distinguishing African-American church suppers, a pie so beloved that families guarded recipes and church mothers competed silently. Sweet potatoes were roasted until tender, then mashed smooth and mixed with eggs, evaporated milk, brown sugar, butter, vanilla, cinnamon, and generous nutmeg that gave filling its distinctive warmth. The mixture was poured into flaky crusts and baked until filling set firm but remained creamy, with tops developing slight sheen. Churchwomen made multiple pies for every supper, knowing sweet potato pie would disappear quickly. Sweet potatoes were inexpensive year-round and stored well in pantries, making them practical for feeding dozens. The pie represented African-American culinary tradition at its finest, with roots tracing to West African yam preparations. Children grew up knowing sweet potato pie was superior to pumpkin pie, understanding this was their dessert, their tradition, their taste of home. Smothered pork chops in gravy represented church supper luxury, transforming inexpensive cuts into something special through slow cooking and proper seasoning. Thick pork chops were seasoned with salt, pepper, garlic powder, and paprika before being dredged in flour and fried until golden, then removed while onions and bell peppers were sautéed in drippings to build gravy's foundation. The chops returned to the pan submerged in rich brown gravy made from pan drippings, broth, and flour, then simmered slowly until meat became tender. Church kitchens filled with the smell during preparation, announcing this would be special meal worth attending. Pork chops cost less than other cuts and could be purchased from Black-owned butcher shops where families had credit accounts helping stretch budgets. The gravy was the secret, thick and savory with bits of caramelized onion throughout, perfect for spooning over rice or soaking up with cornbread. Fried whiting fish brought coastal traditions inland to fellowship halls, providing affordable protein that could feed large crowds without expensive fish like snapper. Whole whiting were cleaned and scaled, then scored on both sides before being heavily seasoned with salt, pepper, cayenne, and garlic powder. The fish were dredged in seasoned cornmeal, creating crunchy golden coating when dropped into hot oil, with flesh inside staying white, flaky, and tender, while exterior turned crisp. Church fish fries became community events where men gathered around outdoor fryers while women prepared sides, with smell drawing neighbors from blocks away. Whiting was among cheapest fish available, with whole fish costing just pennies per pound and small bones that could be eaten when properly fried. The fish provided complete protein and essential fatty acids, making them nutritious choices that satisfied appetites. Children learned to navigate small bones expertly, picking meat clean and leaving behind perfect skeletons. Mustard potato salad appeared at every church supper in large bowls, its bright yellow color from prepared mustard distinguishing it from mayonnaise versions and giving it tangy sharpness that cut through rich meats. Potatoes were boiled until tender, then cooled and diced before being mixed with chopped onions, celery, hard-boiled eggs, sweet pickle relish, mayonnaise, and generous squirts of yellow mustard. The result was creamy and tangy with textural variety from crunchy vegetables and creamy potatoes, served cold during long gatherings. Churchwomen made potato salad in enormous quantities, knowing it was essential accompaniment to fried fish, barbecue, or any main dish needing starchy, cool contrast. Potatoes were among cheapest vegetables available year-round, with 10-pound bags costing less than $1. The mustard added minimal cost but maximum flavor. Families developed strong preferences for their church's version. String beans with fatback simmered for hours in church kitchens, transforming fresh green beans into tender vegetables seasoned with smoky pork. Fresh string beans were snapped by hand, with churchwomen sitting in circles breaking off ends while they talked and laughed together. The beans were added to large pots with chunks of fatback, water, salt, pepper, and sometimes sugar to balance the salt, then cooked slowly until the beans turned soft and fatback rendered into the cooking liquid. The result was beans swimming in rich potlikker that could be sopped up with cornbread, with fatback providing essential flavor and calories. Fatback cost almost nothing at butcher shops and kept well when salted, making it perfect for seasoning vegetables for church crowds. The beans appeared at every summer supper when gardens produced abundance, with families bringing bushels they had grown to be prepared communally. Children grew up loving these beans, understanding that smoky richness came from careful preparation and patience. Cabbage stewed with ham filled fellowship halls with its distinctive aroma, transforming inexpensive vegetables into something hearty through slow cooking with pork. Cabbage heads were quartered and added to large pots with ham hocks, onions, garlic, black pepper, and sometimes vinegar that brightened the flavors. The cabbage cooked down until tender, absorbing smoky richness from ham while the ham became fall-apart tender. The result was soft cabbage and flavorful broth that people ate with spoons, sopping up liquid with cornbread and picking meat from ham hocks. Cabbage was among cheapest vegetables available year-round, with heads costing pennies and lasting weeks in storage. The dish stretched small amounts of meat to feed large crowds, with ham hocks providing enough flavor to make cabbage taste rich. Church women made enormous pots that sat on stoves for hours, filling buildings with smells announcing supper. The cabbage represented practical cooking that honored tradition while feeding communities affordably. Corn pudding casserole arrived at church suppers in deep baking dishes, its golden top slightly browned and custard-like interior, sweet from fresh corn enriched with eggs and milk. Fresh corn kernels were cut from cobs and mixed with eggs, evaporated milk, butter, sugar, flour, and sometimes nutmeg before being poured into buttered dishes and baked slowly. The result was somewhere between pudding and cornbread, with tender corn suspended in creamy custard that held together when spooned. Churchwomen made corn pudding during summer when corn was abundant and cheap, often receiving bags from families with garden surplus. The dish stretched corn into something substantial that could serve as both vegetable and starch, filling stomachs efficiently. Children loved corn pudding because it tasted slightly sweet, while adults appreciated how it used seasonal abundance while creating something celebratory. Corn pudding proved that church cooks understood transforming simple ingredients into dishes satisfying both hunger and soul. Bread pudding with vanilla sauce transformed leftover bread into beloved dessert that appeared regularly, proving resourcefulness could create something delicious from what might be wasted. Day-old bread was torn into chunks and soaked in mixture of eggs, milk, sugar, vanilla, cinnamon, and sometimes raisins before being baked until golden and set. The result was custardy inside with slightly crisp top, served warm with vanilla sauce made from butter, sugar, flour, milk, and pure vanilla poured over each portion. Church women saved bread ends and slightly stale slices throughout the week, knowing bread pudding would be needed for upcoming suppers. The dessert cost almost nothing since bread was abundant and eggs and milk were pantry staples, perfect for feeding crowds. The vanilla sauce transformed humble pudding into something that felt indulgent, with sweetness and richness satisfying dessert cravings. Children asked for second helpings, while adults appreciated practicality of turning leftovers into celebration. Fried chicken wings with hot sauce were less expensive than whole chickens or breasts, making them practical for feeding church crowds while providing crispy, savory chicken everyone loved. Chicken wings were heavily seasoned with salt, pepper, garlic powder, and paprika before being dredged in seasoned flour and dropped into hot oil that turned skin golden and crunchy. The wings were fried until cooked through and crispy, then tossed with hot sauce while warm so the spicy, vinegary sauce coated every surface. The result was addictive, with crunchy coating giving way to tender meat and tangy heat that made people reach for more. Church fish fries often included chicken wings alongside fish, providing options for those who preferred poultry. Wings cost significantly less per pound than other chicken parts and cooked quickly, making them economical and practical. Hot sauce added minimal expense but transformed plain fried wings into something with personality. Children who couldn't handle heat ate wings without sauce. Lima beans with butter and bacon transformed what some children considered boring vegetables into something rich through proper seasoning and pork. Dried lima beans were soaked overnight, then cooked slowly with bacon pieces, onions, garlic, and bay leaves until beans became creamy and tender. Butter was stirred in at the end, adding richness and glossy finish. The result was substantial enough to serve as main dish or hearty side, with bacon providing smoky depth and butter adding luxurious mouthfeel. Lima beans were inexpensive, with dried bags costing pennies and yielding enormous quantities when cooked. The beans provided complete protein when combined with cornbread, making them nutritionally valuable and economical. Church women made large pots that fed dozens, knowing beans would be popular with both adults and children who appreciated bacon flavor. The dish appeared regularly at Wednesday suppers, proving simple ingredients properly prepared could create something genuinely beloved. Turnip greens with potlikker simmered for hours in church kitchens, filling buildings with their distinctive aroma signaling traditional Southern cooking. Fresh turnip greens were washed multiple times to remove grit, then added to large pots with ham hocks, onions, garlic, vinegar, sugar, and red pepper flakes that balanced the greens' natural bitterness. The greens cooked down until tender and dark, releasing juices into cooking liquid that became rich potlikker. The potlikker was the treasure, thick with vitamins and flavor, often drunk from cups or sopped with cornbread. Churchwomen understood greens required proper seasoning and long cooking to transform them from tough leaves into tender vegetables. Turnip greens cost almost nothing, often donated by families. The dish connected congregations to agricultural traditions and represented cooking that sustained families through lean times while providing nutrition. Children learned to appreciate greens early, understanding they were non-negotiable parts of supper plates. Chess pie with cornmeal was Southern dessert tradition that appeared regularly at church suppers, its simple ingredients transforming into something rich and sweet. Eggs, sugar, butter, cornmeal, vinegar, and vanilla were whisked together and poured into unbaked pie crusts, then baked slowly until filling set firm with slightly caramelized top. The cornmeal gave the pie subtle texture and nutty flavor that distinguished it from plain custard pies, while vinegar added brightness, balancing sweetness. The result was dense and sweet with slight graininess that made each bite interesting, served at room temperature in thin slices. Chess pie required only pantry staples that most families already had, making it economical for church desserts feeding dozens. Churchwomen competed quietly over whose chess pie achieved perfect balance of sweetness and texture. The pie represented cooking that made much from little, proving sophistication did not require expensive ingredients or complex techniques. Salmon croquettes with crackers transformed canned salmon into elegant finger foods that appeared at church receptions where something slightly fancy was needed. Canned salmon was drained and flaked, then mixed with crushed crackers, eggs, onions, and seasonings, before being formed into small patties and pan-fried until golden. The result was crispy on the outside and tender inside, with salmon flavor coming through clearly. The croquettes were served on platters with saltine crackers for guests to make into small sandwiches, creating bite-sized treats that felt special. Canned salmon was affordable protein that did not require refrigeration before opening, making it practical for church kitchens. The dish stretched small amounts of salmon to serve large crowds, with each can yielding dozens of small croquettes. Church women made these for afternoon receptions, following weddings and funerals, knowing they represented hospitality and care. The croquettes proved church cooks could create refined food from humble ingredients. Chicken livers smothered in onions represented economical protein that church kitchens transformed into flavorful dishes through proper preparation. Fresh chicken livers were cleaned and trimmed, then seasoned heavily with salt, pepper, and garlic powder before being dredged in flour and fried until browned. Sliced onions were sautéed in the same pan until soft and sweet, then livers returned to simmer in gravy made from drippings. The result was tender livers in rich onion gravy spooned over rice or served with cornbread. Livers cost almost nothing per pound and provided concentrated nutrition including iron and B vitamins essential for health. Church women understood livers required quick cooking to stay tender, teaching younger cooks proper technique. The dish appeared at Wednesday night suppers when budgets were especially tight, proving organ meats could be delicious when properly prepared. Children who initially resisted learned to appreciate rich flavor, while adults valued both economy and nutrition. Oxtail stew with vegetables turned what butchers once gave away into luxury dishes saved for special occasions. Oxtails were browned in large pots until caramelized, then simmered for hours with onions, carrots, celery, tomatoes, and herbs until meat became fall-apart tender and bones released gelatin into rich, thick broth. The result was deeply flavorful stew that tasted expensive despite costing almost nothing. Church women understood oxtails required patience and long cooking, teaching younger cooks the value of slow preparation. The bones cost pennies per pound at Black-owned butcher shops. The stew stretched small amounts of meat to feed large crowds, with vegetables adding bulk and nutrition, while gelatinous broth created satisfaction. Oxtail stew appeared at anniversary dinners and homecoming celebrations, signaling this was meal worth attending. The dish proved that proper technique could transform what others discarded into something genuinely special. Lemon pound cake arrived at church suppers on cake plates, its dense golden crumb topped with lemon glaze that dripped down sides and hardened into sweet coating. Butter, sugar, eggs, flour, and fresh lemon juice and zest were beaten together until smooth, then baked slowly in loaf pans until cakes set firm. The glaze was made from powdered sugar and lemon juice whisked together and poured over warm cakes so it soaked in while creating a shiny finish. The result was rich and buttery with bright lemon flavor cutting through sweetness, served in thick slices. Church women made pound cakes for special occasions, knowing dense cakes could feed many people from single loaves. The cakes kept well for days, actually improving as flavors melted together. Lemons added minimal cost, but transformed plain pound cake into something with personality. The cakes represented tradition and skill, proving church bakers understood classic techniques that created genuine elegance from basic ingredients. Banana pudding with vanilla wafers and meringue was the signature dessert that distinguished Southern church suppers, with layers creating something that felt both nostalgic and celebratory. Vanilla custard was cooked on stovetops until thick, then layered with vanilla wafers and sliced bananas before being topped with meringue made from egg whites beaten until stiff with sugar. The meringue was spread thick and swirled into peaks that browned under the broiler, creating golden tops people fought over. The dessert was served cold, with cookies softened by custard while maintaining slight crunch. Church women made banana pudding for every significant gathering, knowing it would disappear quickly. Bananas were inexpensive and available year-round, while vanilla wafers came in affordable boxes. The meringue stretched eggs further while creating impressive presentation. Banana pudding represented the kind of dessert that made church suppers special, proving simple ingredients combined properly could create something genuinely memorable. Hoppin John for New Year's represented cultural tradition and superstition, with black-eyed peas and rice eaten on January 1st, promising prosperity and good luck. Black-eyed peas were cooked with rice, ham hock, onions, and seasonings until peas became creamy and rice absorbed all flavorful cooking liquid. The dish was served at watch night services and New Year's Day dinners, where congregations gathered to eat together and pray for blessings. Church elders taught younger generations that eating Hoppin John on New Year's was a essential tradition connecting them to ancestors. The peas symbolized coins, while greens served alongside represented paper money. Black-eyed peas and rice cost almost nothing, making them accessible to every family regardless of economic circumstances. The tradition united communities across class lines, with wealthy and poor alike participating. Hoppin John proved that church food traditions carried meaning beyond mere sustenance, connecting people to heritage while feeding hope for better times ahead. Fried okra in cornmeal transformed vegetables that some found slimy into crispy, addictive bites that disappeared from platters immediately. Fresh okra was sliced into rounds, tossed in seasoned cornmeal, creating crunchy coating when fried, then dropped into hot oil until golden and crisp. The result was crunchy outside and tender inside, with frying eliminating okra's natural sliminess while creating something that tasted almost like popcorn. Churchwomen made fried okra during summer when gardens produced abundance, knowing it would be popular with adults and children. Okra was easy to grow and produced prolifically in southern heat, making it economical for feeding crowds. The cornmeal coating cost pennies and transformed the vegetable completely. Fried okra appeared at fish fries and summer suppers, served hot from the fryer and eaten immediately with fingers. Children who claimed to hate okra would devour fried versions, while adults appreciated how proper preparation could make any vegetable delicious. Butter beans and ham simmered in church kitchens until beans became creamy and ham fell apart into tender shreds. Fresh or dried butter beans were cooked slowly with ham hocks, onions, garlic, and black pepper until everything melted together. The result was thick, creamy beans in rich broth sopped up with cornbread. Butter beans were southern staple that grew easily in gardens and dried well for winter storage. The beans stretched small amounts of ham to feed large crowds, with ham providing essential flavor that transformed plain beans into something special. Churchwomen made enormous pots that sat on stoves through long afternoon suppers. The dish appeared regularly throughout the year, proving itself reliable and beloved. Butter beans and ham represented the kind of cooking that sustained communities, showing how proper technique and patience could create satisfaction from modest resources. Blackberry cobbler from wild berries represented summer's abundance and the tradition of foraging that connected church communities to the land. Children and adults picked wild blackberries from brambles along fence lines, returning with stained fingers and buckets full of fruit. The berries were tossed with sugar and lemon juice, then covered with pastry dough and baked until fruit bubbled. The result was tart and sweet simultaneously, with wild berries providing more intense flavor than cultivated varieties. Churchwomen made blackberry cobbler during brief summer season when berries ripened. The berries cost nothing since they grew wild, making cobbler affordable despite seeming luxurious. The dessert appeared at summer revivals and vacation Bible school celebrations, served warm with ice cream when available. Blackberry cobbler connected people to seasonal rhythms and reminded them that life's sweetest pleasures came from nature rather than stores. Boiled peanuts in salt water were Southern tradition that appeared at outdoor church events, with steaming pots of soft, salty peanuts eaten while people socialized. Raw peanuts in shells were boiled for hours in heavily salted water until shells softened and peanuts became tender and briny. The result was unlike roasted peanuts completely, with soft texture and salty flavor that made them addictive. Churchmen often took charge of boiling peanuts for picnics and outdoor gatherings, standing over propane burners and testing batches until they reached perfect tenderness. Peanuts were inexpensive Southern crop that many families grew in gardens. The boiling process was simple but required patience and attention. Boiled peanuts were eaten warm, with people cracking shells and sucking out soft nuts before discarding shells. The snack represented regional food culture specific to the South, connecting church communities to agricultural heritage. String bean casserole with bacon and onions was the kind of dish that looked simple but carried weight. Fresh beans were snapped by hand, tossed into pans with crisp bacon and caramelized onions until the whole kitchen smelled alive. The recipe came before shortcuts, before cans and mixes, when people built flavor from scratch. That first bite was smoky, soft, and sweet. A hymn sung through taste. On church Sundays, this dish always disappeared first. The bowl went around once, twice, and came back empty, a quiet testament to good hands and good memories. The bacon fat gave the beans their soul, coating them in flavor that whispered of long days in the kitchen and even longer days in the fields. A little sugar balanced the salt, a trick passed down by women who knew that even vegetables deserved indulgence. It was a dish that spoke softly but stayed with you, proof that the simplest foods could feel the richest. Ground pumpkin seed. Porridge transformed leftover seeds into a hearty meal that supplied both protein and healthy oils. After pumpkins were cooked for pies or stews, the seeds were washed, dried, and pounded into a coarse meal. This meal was simmered slowly in water or thin milk, creating a creamy porridge with a subtle nutty flavor. Sweetened lightly with honey or molasses when available, it became a sustaining breakfast or evening dish that used every part of the harvest. The method reflected West African culinary traditions where ground seeds thickened soups and stews, showing how transplanted knowledge enriched American foodways. Generations after emancipation, pumpkin seed porridge remained a seasonal specialty in some rural areas, appreciated for its nourishing qualities and gentle taste. Modern cooks might recognize it in contemporary seed-based milks and cereals, proving that this centuries-old practice still influences how we eat today. Ground pumpkin seed. Porridge highlights the wisdom of never wasting what nature provides and celebrates a heritage of careful resourcefulness that continues to inspire. Stewed oxtails with rice gravy brought deep flavor and slow-cooked richness to Sunday tables across many African-American communities. Oxtails, once inexpensive and overlooked, were browned in heavy pots and then simmered for hours with onions, garlic, and spices until the meat turned buttery soft. The braising liquid thickened into a silky gravy that clung to each grain of rice, creating a dish that was equal parts comfort and celebration. Families saved this meal for weekends when everyone could gather because patience was essential and conversation flowed while the pot worked its magic. Children sneaked tastes from wooden spoons, drawn by the savory aroma that filled the house from morning until evening. The humble tale, once discarded by butchers, became a centerpiece of pride and ingenuity. Today, rising prices and faster cooking habits mean fewer people take the time to coax such tenderness from a simple cut of beef, but those who remember the meal speak of it as a perfect union of thrift, skill, and the slow rhythm of family life. Homemade cornmeal pancakes for supper were another way families stretched basic ingredients into a filling meal. Flour, cornmeal, lard, and milk came together in a batter that fried into golden cakes on a hot skillet. My grandmother served them stacked, drizzled with syrup if any was available, or eaten plain with butter when syrup was gone. The pancakes were fluffy yet hearty, giving enough energy to hold a family until morning. They cost next to nothing but fed many, which was exactly what mattered most. Children loved the sweetness when syrup was added, while adults appreciated the sheer substance of the cakes. In the 1960s, cornmeal pancakes were a staple when meat was scarce, turning humble ingredients into something warm and reliable. It was comfort food born of necessity, one of those meals that never left memory even as times changed. Homemade cornmeal pancakes carried the spirit of thrift, filling plates with love and survival. Okra and tomatoes stew was the kind of dish that stretched a garden into a meal. The pot came alive with color, bright reds and deep greens bubbling together, thickened just enough to cling to rice or cornbread. Okra was the backbone, its silky texture giving body to every spoonful, while tomatoes brought the tang that tied everything together. Grandparents made it in the summer when gardens overflowed and nothing went to waste. If you had a little onion, a pinch of salt, and patience, you could feed everyone. The smell drifted through the house, a mix of earthiness and spice that promised something hearty on the table. It wasn't just about taste, it was about gratitude, about pulling something beautiful out of the soil and turning it into sustenance. In lean times, this stew could hold a family steady. Some added smoked sausage when they had it, others kept it purely from the garden. But the feeling it gave was always the same: full, content, cared for. It's a dish that proves comfort doesn't need money, just memory. Fried whiting fish was the heartbeat of summer services and Sunday fundraisers, popping and hissing in cast-iron skillets behind the church. The fish was dredged in seasoned cornmeal, fried until golden and crisp, the edges curling slightly as they hit the hot oil. The sound alone could bring a crowd. Children ran back and forth with paper plates while elders fanned themselves with church programs, laughing and waiting for the next batch. You could taste the salt of the sea, the crunch of tradition, the work of hands that knew how to stretch a meal. Fried whiting was affordable, filling, and familiar, something every soul food cook could trust to come out right. Sometimes it was served with white bread and mustard, sometimes with coleslaw and hush puppies, but always with pride. It was food that traveled well, from kitchen to fellowship hall to picnic table, and it never lost its magic. Every piece was a little miracle of patience and grease, the taste of good company and good faith. Pine needle tea offered a bright and restorative drink when fresh produce was scarce during cold months. Enslaved foragers collected the youngest green needles from longleaf and loblolly pines, rinsed them carefully, and steeped them in hot water until the brew released a light citrus aroma. Rich in vitamin C, this tea helped ward off scurvy and brought a welcome freshness to winter diets heavy with salt-preserved foods. The practice echoed both indigenous traditions and West African herbal knowledge, merging two continents' wisdom into a single sustaining cup. Families continued to brew pine needle tea well after emancipation, and it remains popular among modern herbalists for its gentle flavor and reputed immune-boosting qualities. Its evergreen scent and warm golden color remind us that even in the most barren season, the forest offered nourishment. Pine needle tea illustrates how observing the land and respecting its cycles allowed people to find both medicine and comfort, turning what others overlooked into a sustaining daily ritual that strengthened body and spirit alike. Ham bone soup with vegetables was one of those meals where one piece of meat flavored an entire pot. A single ham bone, stripped of most of its meat, simmered for hours with onions, carrots, and potatoes until the broth turned rich and smoky. My grandmother would add beans or greens if she had them, letting the flavors meld into something far more substantial than the ingredients suggested. Families gathered around steaming bowls, dipping bread into the broth and savoring the flavor the bone had left behind. It was frugal cooking at its finest, taking scraps and stretching them into nourishment. The soup fed many mouths, warmed cold nights, and made do with what was available. In the 1960s, when meat was costly, a ham bone could be the centerpiece of dinner, proving that thrift and patience could coax flavor out of nearly anything. Ham bone soup with vegetables carried both practicality and comfort in every ladleful. Hoppin John was the heartbeat of New Year's morning and every day that needed a little hope. Black-eyed peas simmered with rice, and a hint of smoked meat turned into more than just a meal. It became a blessing. Grandparents swore by it, saying a bowl on the first day of the year would bring luck, health, and enough to last. The peas symbolized coins, the rice meant abundance, and every spoonful felt like a promise whispered between generations. You could smell the onions frying before the pot even started, the kind of smell that felt like homecoming. This dish came out of history, from the low-country kitchens of the South, and found its way into hearts across America. Even when times were thin, Hoppin John stayed thick, filling bellies and spirits alike. It wasn't a rich person's dish. It was the people's dish, one that carried laughter, prayer, and endurance in equal measure. Today, even if you only make it once a year, you can feel that same wish for good fortune echo through every bite. Collard greens with ham hocks were the backbone of every potluck table, steaming and savory, filling the room with their deep, earthy scent. The The greens were washed over and over in cool water, not just to clean them, but to honor the work that went into growing them. The ham hocks simmered for hours until the meat softened, sending flavor through every leaf. The pot itself would tremble gently on the stove as if humming along with the gospel songs on the radio. Grandmothers knew the timing by feel, not clocks, tasting the broth and nodding when it was ready. A good pot of greens could stretch a meal, feed a family, and feed a crowd all the same. When carried into the church basement, the steam fogged the lids of the serving trays, and everyone nearby could smell the salt, the smoke, and the love. These greens told stories about sharecropping days, about Sunday rest after long weeks, about making something nourishing from whatever you had. Nothing on that table ever felt more alive. Even if money was tight, you could always count on greens to show up, hearty and humble, served with hot sauce and pride. Corncob jelly turned what most people threw away into a shimmering golden spread that brightened plain breads and biscuits. After kernels were cut from the cob for other uses, the remaining cores were boiled for a long time to draw out natural starch and pectin. The liquid was strained, sweetened with a modest amount of sugar or honey when available, and cooked again until it thickened into a soft jelly with a delicate corn flavor. Enslaved cooks perfected this transformation, ensuring nothing went to waste and every scrap contributed to nourishment. Long after emancipation, rural homesteaders and Depression-era families embraced corncob jelly as a thrifty delicacy, and it still appears at Southern craft fairs and heritage festivals. The gentle sweetness and faintly toasted aroma offer a taste of memory and ingenuity. Corncob jelly proves that culinary creativity can turn the most humble remnants of the harvest into something beautiful, a spread that honors the perseverance of those who found flavor and comfort in the very parts of the plant others overlooked. Sweet potato pie with brown sugar meringue crowned holiday tables with a beauty that matched its flavor. Smooth, mashed sweet potatoes blended with warm spices created a filling as rich as any custard, poured into a flaky handmade crust. The crowning touch was a cloud of meringue whipped with brown sugar until caramel-scented peaks formed and browned lightly in the oven. Families saved the first slice for honored guests or elders, a sign of respect and affection. The pie carried the sweetness of the southern soil and the skill of generations who knew how to stretch simple ingredients into celebration. Children licked the mixing bowls clean while parents watched the meringue rise, a shared moment of anticipation before the feast. Over time, commercial pies and instant mixes dulled the tradition, but those who remember the warm aroma of brown sugar meringue know that this dessert is more than food. It is a memory of family love, patient hands, and the quiet pride of homemade beauty. Sorghum syrup biscuits with milk were the kind of dinner that showed how families found sweetness even in struggle. Sorghum syrup, cheaper than sugar, was kept in jars that seemed to last forever, poured generously over hot biscuits fresh from the oven. My grandmother baked the biscuits with flour and lard, ingredients that could be stretched and shared across multiple meals. Once the biscuits were ready, she split them open, drizzled them with syrup, and served them with cold milk poured into glasses. It was simple but filling, providing enough energy for tired workers and growing children. The sweetness of the syrup turned plain flour biscuits into something that felt like a treat, even if it was just supper. In the 1960s, this kind of meal reminded families that comfort did not always need meat or elaborate dishes. It was about making do with what was on hand and finding joy in it. Sorghum syrup biscuits with milk were a reminder that sweetness could soften the edge of hardship. Smothered pork chops were Sunday strength on a plate. Thick cuts of pork cooked slow in onion gravy until every bite fell apart at the touch of a fork. The grandmothers who made them did not rush anything because flavor took time and love took patience. They browned the chops in cast-iron skillets that had seen decades of dinners, letting the sizzle mark the start of the feast. Then came the onions, sliced thin, fried golden, and stirred with broth and flour until the whole kitchen smelled like home. Those pans were never washed too hard because that seasoning was history. By the time the chops were done, The gravy had turned deep and glossy, clinging to rice, biscuits, or whatever was served beside it. Folks lined up early at the church table for this dish, knowing it would be gone before the choir even finished their song. It was not fancy food, it was memory food, the kind that reminded you who raised you and how much care could live inside one skillet. Even now, if you ever smell that rich gravy cooking, it feels like stepping back into a kitchen where laughter and faith never ran out. Which of these church supper dishes would you bring back to the table? Drop your memories in the comments, hit like if these flavors reminded you of Sunday fellowship, and subscribe for more forgotten traditions that fed entire generations.